I work with a lot of companies who plan to open up shop in or expand across Europe. My one big piece of advice: don't fall into the trap of setting up a new entity right away. Instead, talk to my friends at Paracar, who can help you get up and running without all the costs, not to mention the legal and HR hassle. When I was hiring in different EU countries, I wanted my team to focus on their work, not on the country's bureaucracy. After interviewing a half dozen international expansion firms, I chose Paracar because they were by far the most knowledgeable and they're great people. Whether you're a large multinational looking to expand abroad, a small business looking for the right talent, or a contractor, they'll sort it out. Book a free, no-obligation consultation right now at paracar.eu/climate. That's PARAKAR.eu/climate. Welcome to another ClimateTech podcast, interviews with the people trying to save us from ourselves. Remember in the mid-2010s when we were all talking about microplastics and things like face creams, and brands were making a big deal about being micro-bead free? Well, although the media attention's gone away, the problem of microplastics has definitely not. Adam Root is the founder and CEO of Matter, which is tackling the problem of microplastics, which he calls the new asbestos, head on. I reached him in Bristol, England. I'm Ryan Grant Little. Thanks for being here. Adam, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for the invite, Ryan. Lovely to hear what you guys got going on.
You're the founder and CEO of Matter, and it's got a flagship product called Gulp. I love the names, first of all. Can you talk a little bit about what Matter does and what kind of product Gulp is?
Sure. So Matter as a company focuses on the capture, the harvest, and the recycling of micropollution. So we're looking at anything kind of smaller than 20 millimeters in size. We have our first product that we're bringing to market, which is called Gulp, as you mentioned. Gulp is the world's first retrofittable washing machine filter, which is a bit of a mouthful, for capturing micropollution from your laundry. So it's a device that you can plug into the back of your washing machine. It captures the microplastic and then can be removed from the water. So you can use your laundry, wash synthetic textiles, and do it with a clean conscience as well as a clean load.
Yeah, I like that. All of those things could be slogans for the company, and you're very good on the branding side, I have to say. And I was fascinated to read a bit about your background, which is both as a mechanical engineer. You worked at places like Dyson, you've won some innovation awards, but you're also a scuba diver. And it sounds like being underwater and seeing the plastics down there is also kind of what kicked you into gear on this project. Can you talk a little bit about that and that connection?
Yeah, sure. So scuba diving is probably one of my great passions in life, and I dive in the UK, which is you have to be pretty passionate about getting in the water if you'd get into the UK waters. You know, we get it pretty cold. We have pretty big swell and can be pretty gnarly at times. And scuba diving has taken me all over the world. I've done cave diving, shipwreck stuff, penetrations, like wrecks and stuff, and I really enjoy it. I love it. I think I saw Matter and created and founded Matter really because there was this kind of intersection for me where I had this skill set. I'm very fortunate. I worked really hard on what I've done and become very good at being an engineer. And then when I was first founding a business in about 2017, I was looking around for people to work for, and I just couldn't find anybody out there really kind of looking at some of the challenges that we face as humanity. And I think that micropollution, ocean plastic, it sort of fits through a lot of gaps. So for me, having that engineering background with that passion of the scuba diving piece really kind of allows me to really understand that the work that I'm doing is directly related to what's going on in the real world. And I've seen that through my time in diving, seeing how that world is changing, seeing the acidification in a coral, seeing what's happening in the ocean pollution. I really wanted to kind of get in there and make some tangible difference. So, yeah.
And so it fits through the gaps, both, as a topic, but also quite literally with the microplastics and microfibers. So interesting parallel there. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what these are. So you said they're things that are less than 20 millimeters, but what are microfibers, microplastics I think a lot of people have read about this, have heard about it, but might not know kind of in a material sense what these actually are.
Yeah, sure. So I think when we think about microplastics, people often think about micro-beads, which was the big campaigns that were launched a couple of years ago with it was the kind of like the bits of plastic they were putting into face scrubs. So you were rubbing your face with a cream and it was had plastics in it, and that was exfoliant, which is kind of crazy. They were doing that you were just washing that down the drain. So as a bit of kind of a technical piece, because I'll be shot at by the academic community if I don't mention it. So you have microplastics are considered to be anything less than sort of 5 millimeters in size, really, and normally they're plastics. So sometimes they're big bits of plastic that are broken down into small pieces. So you think about carrier bags or plastic bottles; those kind of things can then break down into smaller pieces. And then sometimes they're specifically designed at that size and particle size. Microfibers, effectively, they're fragments of your clothes. Now, around 60% of all fabrics are synthetic, and that basically a fiber is the length of 5 millimeters in size. If you ever want to see this, literally go to any white surface in your house, look at the sink, look at the windowsill, and you'll see these little tiny squiggly lines. Those are from your clothes. There's more of those in your house. And when we think of dust, it used to be skin cells, and now dust is microfibers and microplastic.
Huh.
So you're breathing this in all the time. It's in your environment. It's what your carpet's made from. It's what your curtains are made from. It's what the beds are made from. It's also in your gym clothes. It's in, your sportswear. So it's a very, very pervasive thing. And you're kind of like, well, if it's everywhere, what's the big deal here? What's the problem? But unfortunately, we're talking about the new asbestos. It's a material choice that we've made. And now we're in this environment where it's continually around us. And the effects it's having is pretty scary.
And so you mentioned somewhere that each wash load, there's up to 700,000 microfibers and that are getting through, presumably then into the water system, into the oceans. And this is particularly a problem with synthetic clothes. So most clothes, or on average, are 60% synthetic these days. I'm thinking like gym shorts, but also like just day-to-day wear. Mm-hmm. And so this is basically plastics that are coming off of your clothes, going down the pipe, making their way to all kinds of places we don't want them to be and we don't intend for them to be.
Yeah. So the big challenge here, there's three major areas. So one of them, which is the thing that is kind of really coming to light that I'm most scared about, is the chemical pollution side. So microplastics, micropollution is the vessel. It's kind of like the ship, and all the chemicals are getting attached to that. Uh-huh. So things like fire retardants, which we put on clothings, or waterproofing as a key example. So there's a chemical called PFAS. It's really big in the States at the minute. They're talking about it, forever chemicals being a real challenge. Now, that is attached to the micropollutant, the pill. So when this is being released, you're getting a waterproof jacket, which has got the waterproof coating that's attached to that material. That is being eaten and ingested by some of the smallest organisms on the planet. And the thing that I care about the most is phytoplankton and zooplankton. So these guys represent the largest sequestration of carbon on the planet, and they also produce the majority of the world's oxygen. So these are like the bees of the sea, if you like, right? So they're in that regard, you're getting these organisms eating these micropollutants, and then the chemicals are transferring into the fatty tissue of the animal. That compounds and goes up the food chain. So if you had something like a tuna or like a big predatorial fish that we eat, they would be in a compound amount of that. So 10,000 bits of phytoplankton be eaten by a mackerel, and then 10 mackerels get eaten by tuna, and we eat the tuna. So that chemical composition, and we've seen that with mercury. Mercury, that was sort of done in the 90s. So we're seeing this kind of repeat. So those kind of the ingestion, the chemical pollution, and then the final part is about when it's getting transferred into us. So in the UK, we capture some micropollution in wastewater treatment plants, and then we spread that material onto the fields where we grow all our food. So we are literally just like pouring the material with all the chemicals that are involved in the wastewater treatment plant process, as well as like things like estrogen and different kind of parts of that goes in our water system that then attached to the micropollution that then runs into the food, and then we're eating it. So it's been shown to cause cancer. It's been shown to mutate your DNA, and it also can breach the blood-brain barrier, which basically means that these particles are small enough that they can go into your blood and then into your brain. So generally as a rule, micropollution is like, it's a category, and there's about 12, 13,000 chemicals that are being attached to different types of plastics, and they're acting and being treated in some pretty terrifying ways.
And so, regardless of whether your diet is omnivore or plant-based, either way, you're getting exposure to these, because whether it's from fish or animals eating the feed, or eating this in the sea, if it's being spread on fields, then it's in your broccoli as well. It sounds like.
Yeah, and I think, if we talk about the indoor, like we spend like 90% of our time indoors, and I just talked about, seeing the air pollution side of that as well. It's really challenging. So there's some work that's gone on that said that we're consuming up to 5 grams of plastic per week, which is about a credit card's worth.
Yeah.
So these kind of numbers, when we hear about these, and there's some, people will challenge different parts about the quantity and the effect and the harm. But, people aren't challenging the fact of like PFAS is dangerous, or the particular chemicals we're talking about are dangerous. This is just a case about how much can your body deal with. And that baseline is increasing.
Yeah, it would be the brave lobbyist who argues that, some amount of plastic ingestion is good, or, try to limit it to half a credit card per week.
You wouldn't believe the opposing forces.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's big money in this.
Oh, yeah.
And you imagine the cleanup bills are going to come. There are a couple of companies I can talk about, court cases that are in the billions already.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, it feels to me like all of the former tobacco lobbyists are now in oil and big ag these days, and making some pretty ridiculous cases, but using the playbook, to sow doubt quite effectively, unfortunately. But on that point, you've mentioned a few times some of the legislation that's coming out in France about microfibers, maybe specifically in washing machines. And I wonder if you could talk a bit about what that looks like in France. Is this something that's slated to be kind of EU law in general? And what maybe you think that will catalyze as a movement?
Yeah, so France went really early on a national campaign, and they basically banned the sale of washing machines from 2025 without microplastic filters. They understood the challenges. This is actually it's technically very challenging to do it well, but the base principle is not rocket science. You can capture microplastic with all sorts of kind of standard filters. So there was a really big push in France, and then they moved forward, and that catalyzed the whole washing machine industry. And the reason why we're talking about washing machines is because they represent about 35% of global microplastic emissions. They're one of the biggest sources. So car tires are about 28%, synthetic textiles, the washing, the manufacture, the whole process, that's around 35%. So washing machines, you wouldn't think are a big thing, but there's about 70 million people live in the UK, about the same in France. We've got about 24 million washing machines running 4 or 5 times a week. If you've got kids, you're running your washing machine every day, and those washes release about 1 gram of microplastic per wash. So it's super challenging to actually build a filtration system in a real high flow environment like a wastewater treatment plant, and it's really expensive. There are solutions out there, but you're talking 600-700 million plus in some of these scenarios for building a wastewater treatment plant. Whereas the microfiber filters are, 10, 15, 20 pounds being installed in a washing machine. So it's a much more distributed cost, and it's an easy win. So there's talk about that going into the EU is currently putting a bill together for that to go EU-wide. They're talking about 2027. They're setting a standard using something called IEC. So you have ASTM standards, the American standards, and then IEC standards, European standards. So I'm on my team and my company's on the board of like helping write those standards and telling them, please don't cheat. So we're kind of like trying to make sure that everybody's staying nice and, working for the environment, making sure that we're developing a good product. That will go EU-wide, which is, 27 plus countries. Then we're also talking about the US, California. California actually was the first to move. New York has also got bills in place where they're kind of looking at rebate schemes, but California was copying the French legislation. There is significant pressure right now from different lobbying bodies to try to kind of drag these back. Which
talking about woke washing machines probably now, and that type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the power they have is pretty amazing, and I thought that these guys would be just sort of quite excited to talk about, putting some new technology in that's The washing machines are white boxes with glass doors, and they haven't really changed really in the last like 20 years. It's pretty boring, really. Someone walks along and said, "Hey, you got like customers that care about this. This is a great opportunity for you to innovate in this space." And their response is crush legislation, which is, they say that on one foot, and on the next foot they're innovating and they're doing it anyway. They're just trying to slow it down so they can do it in their own time.
You need briefcases of cash to show up. That, I think, helps.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe. I think we joke. I don't know who these people are. They're kind of asleep in a coffin, upside down.
It's really crazy. Yeah. I mean, I work a lot obviously in climate and in food, and I always knew that there would be technical challenges to try to solve climate change or work against. I didn't expect the headwinds of these like the bad guys from the Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, which is, I mean, basically the world we're living in. So, and the challenge is you come up with something that makes a lot of sense, technical sense, consumers want it. It seems like a slam dunk, and you have to spend so much of your time just fighting these, these very cynical arguments.
I mean, fundamentally, it's like shouting at the sky. The change is coming. Like it is coming. And, myself and my company and what we're doing, we're doing it. There is no shortcut for doing the work. I'm a big believer in that. You got to get it done. But at the end of the day, there's no way that these guys are going to be able to let this go, because it's not going to happen. We are going to push through. We're going to win. We're going to get there eventually. And it is a case that the best technology will win. We will outcompete them. We will outdrive this forward. And the guys who are crying about it in the background will be left behind.
Yeah.
And, I think with this, I don't want to villainize the entire industries in different ways, because there are a lot of really, especially we do a lot with the engineers with the companies, and the engineers are so passionate and they so want to make this happen. It's just really, there's a couple of key individuals really that are really kind of pushing for this and in different ways. And I think those opinions are changing. You probably see this across your podcast and what you talk about, but work and the employment sector has changed so much in the last 5 to 10 years, and I think the new workforce coming in, they don't accept this. This is not acceptable to them to go work for a company that's putting mandates out. And you're talking about internal mutiny in some of these big companies. It's pretty amazing to watch of what's happening. So maybe going a bit off piece there, but I think we have a huge responsibility as employers to really make sure that we represent the values of our business, but also represent our employees, the people who want to work for my company. And also we see in some of these big businesses, that opinion's changing. People aren't just lying down anymore and letting it go. It's becoming a really sought after piece. So you're not just got pressure from your customers anymore. You've got pressures from your employees, and they're not afraid to say why. So I have hope. I'm very, very optimistic about the future. I think it will be painful, but we will. The future we're building will be better than anybody ever dreamed of.
Right now, the product Gulp is sort of an external filter on a washing machine, but you're doing a lot of work on kind of the internal stuff as well. And, when I used to be in the software space, I would always look at things as, is this a feature, a product, or a company? And maybe you're looking at it the same way. Are you worried? Is this a challenge or an opportunity that they're going to be internalizing this stuff? Do you have IP that you can be selling into companies like Bosch and, I don't know, I was going to say Siemens, but it's the same company now, right?
Yeah, good knowledge. So our business is split into 4 major areas. 2 parts of laundry. So we have Gulp, which is the retrofit product, which is a standalone product that's going to market now. We're doing a final stage of the production line. That's going to be launched later this year with big partners we're looking to launch with. Then we have what we call a Matter Inside program, which is imagine Intel Inside. It's our technology in other people's supply chains. So we're working with washing machine brands. It will come included you buy a new washing machine and you have Matter included inside the washing machine, which for us, that's got to be the ultimate goal. I mean, the retrofit allows you to buy this washing machines they're of a 10-year life cycle. So if you've just bought a washing machine, I don't want you to throw your washing machine away. I want you to buy a Gulp, fit it to it, and then you can have 10 years of microplastic-free laundry before you buy your next generation of washing machine, which will have a Matter product in it already. Then we have Matter Industries. Now, this is really where I'm really excited about this right now, and I'm putting a lot of focus moving into the industrial side. So we've scaled our technology to work at 1 million litres of water per day, and we're scaling in to work at multi-millions of litres of water per day. So this is talking about wastewater treatment plants. I'm interested in textiles, so the manufacture and the production of textiles, and also other applications in here as well. There's so much pollution sources that we can get at, and most of the technology on the market, a wastewater treatment plant currently at the minute takes around 25 hours to filter water. I can do it in minutes, and that is we refer to it as dynamic filtration rather than like they use settling at the minute, so it requires time, and that speed means that the water can process faster, which means they can deal with higher flow rates, which means that they won't dump so much in the rivers. And whenever it rains in the UK, we just dump our sewage into the rivers. So I'm looking to tackle some big chunky pieces with that, and they're millions and millions of pounds projects, so they're big chunky stuff. And the final piece is materials. Now, materials is the long holy grail here. Like, we have to innovate to a different material to what we're currently using. But also, we need to figure out what we've got to do with all the material that we're capturing and what that looks like. So we've been working on the materials side for a number of years and made some really clever little headway. But I think it's kind of the future of matter must be in these scale positions. And that's really what I'm kind of looking at as the next piece.
And you started Matter with a grant from the Prince's Trust with a princely sum of £250. I'm assuming that you haven't just built the whole company on that. You've probably taken in some more money. What's the funding journey looks like to date?
Yeah.
And are you raising now?
Yeah. So as we currently stand, I mean, the big news, this is kind of public, is we raised $10 million last year. It's a little bit more than £250, I must admit. Like, I'm my team tell me I'm tight. I've bootstrapped my way through, and I don't like spending money on things that I'm always pretty keen to make sure that we're running as lean as we can. $10 million is a lot of money, and when we raised it, it was because we really realized that our ambition was to change the world, and we were trying to, like, we're targeting 87% of global micropollution. That's the plan, and I was like, we do not have the funding and the capabilities to achieve that mission. So really, when we went out and fundraised, it was all about how do we build the right partnerships and do that. And a couple of key people that we've brought on have just been instrumental to our journey. So a few names include SG Ventures, they're very well known in their space. If you know who they are, they're kind of like they're very big in food and egg. And Lucas Walton, who runs it, part of the Walton family, he's an incredible guy, really super intelligent, lovely to. He's a lovely guy. I met him a few times, and he's just really super humble and just really gets it, and kind of builds. And he pretty much has built most of the ocean space.
That's the Walmart Waltons.
Yes. So they've got a few pounds, a few dollars behind them, and he made a commitment. They wanted to move forward with us, and they've been phenomenal. Like, I'm always a big fan of making sure that we don't just take cash from people. I mean, cash is important, but you can get cash from a lot of places. What's more important is smart money. And we took on Regeneration VC, we're another company that came in, another investment firm, and Dan and Michael, they have some big names, people they back them. But when I first met them, I said, like, I really love what you guys do, and I'd love to meet one of their LPs. And one of their LPs was Leonardo DiCaprio, and he was like, "Oh, everybody wants to meet Leo," and I was like, "No, I want to meet Bill." So Bill Madonna is one of my heroes. Like, I was a massive fanboy, and he co-wrote Cradle to Cradle, which anyone who starts my company gets a copy of Cradle to Cradle. So, I think it's a solution to all the challenges we face. I mean, apart from so for me, it's a how-to guide of how to change the world, and so yeah, I mean, I think some of those backers and some of those people, we had Soundwaves join us, co-leading our round with Ashton Kutcher, guys. Syria, they're very, very smart cookies. They know what they're doing. They've invested in a lot of, they're early investors in Uber and Airbnb, and they've done some pretty amazing stuff. So the team are very driven. So when you've got those kind of backers behind you, you know that you must have done something right. But fundamentally, like, for me, it's about size and scale. Like, we have to do the next chapter of what we're building has to be sustainable in our design, which is fundamental. But then the next piece really is about how do you scale. And there's no point selling 1,000 gulps, in out of Bristol in a shed. Lovely job, fantastic, great that we've got 1,000 people in there, but that is not gonna that's not going to move the needle on global pollution. So we need to talk to people at government level. And I'm currently working on projects in Saudi Arabia at the minute and a few other bits and pieces. And it's kind of like, if you don't hit those big chunky pieces, you have to think about, what you're doing and what the value is. And I think that's really who we brought in on this round.
Amazing. So from the King of England to Ashton Kutcher and everything in between. So some household names there. Adam, where's the best place for people to find you online?
So we're at manor.industries through our website. You can hit us up. We've got an Instagram account and LinkedIn. I'm a big fan of, I think LinkedIn's probably my platform. I think it's where you get the most disruption. Go talk to those leaders and go speak to people. You can go knock on anybody's door, which I love. I love coming and kind of see what's going on. So yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn or, the Meta LinkedIn as well. Check us out. We're always posting all our wonderful things. We was in CES, Las Vegas last week. Berlin, we've been in Slovakia, Slovenia, we've been all over the world. We were in Malaysia later today as well. So hit us up. We're coming to a city near you.
Awesome. We'll leave it there, Adam. Thanks a lot for being here.
Really appreciate it. Thanks. Lovely to chat to you, Ryan.
Thanks for listening to another ClimateTech podcast. It would mean a lot if you would subscribe, rate, and share this podcast. Get in touch anytime with tips and guest recommendations at hello@climatetechpod.com. Find me, Ryan Grant Little, on LinkedIn. I'll be back with another episode next week. Bye for now. This episode is supported by Grizzle, B2B content to create and capture demand. I first met Grizzle's founder, Tom Watley, 5 years ago at a conference in Dublin. I was so impressed that I signed a deal with him to do all my software company's content that same evening at the pub. Remember that, Tom?
Kinda.
And they're still doing it 2 years after we sold the company because the new owners love Grizzle as much as I do. If you sell B2B, book 30 minutes in Tom's calendar at grizzle.io/climate. That's GRIZZLE.io/climate.